Hey guys, it's Ted Bogert. We are back with the Ted Show, and guess who's back? The one and only Kendra Davies with Stellar Life Coaching. She's back on the show. We had a little bit of a hiatus. I like to use that word. It sounds so bougie. We had a hiatus, meaning we both got crazy busy or something was going on. And so we are back with Talk It Out, which is our series. We kind of take a deep dive into things that we should all be talking out. And today we're going to talk about, or we're going to ask the question, are negative emotions helpful? Which I love this topic. Of course, before we do that, we got to say hi to our one and only Kendra. Kendra, what's happening?
Hi. Hello, everybody. How are we?
How are you feeling?
I am good. I've got a few things going on. It's like whatevs.
You know, you look great. The bangs are working. The hair is longer since the last time I saw you. Very nice.
I'm working it out. I'm trying.
All right, so tell them about Stellar Life Coaching before we get into our negative emotions.
So, Kendra Davies, I own Stellar Life Coaching here in Orlando, Florida, and I specialize in positive psychology. I'm a certified positive psychology practitioner and a life coach. And, my shtick is that I help my clients identify, define, and cultivate their own happiness. And I work with couples, individuals, businesses, workshops, keynotes. I'm actually going to be in South Carolina this weekend, hosting the Phoenix Retreat. Go to thephoenixretreat.com. And yeah.
It's amazing, all the stuff you're doing.
I'm trying. We've got a workshop coming up in March. The women's retreat is this weekend. We do have 2 seats left. If somebody is crazy and ready to go to South Carolina.
You can find all of that, of course, on stellarlifecoaching.com or Kendra's social media. All right, so it's been a while since we had a chit chat.
I know.
I think I came up with the basis of this topic, and then, of course, you made it all pretty by framing it, are negative emotions helpful? I'm sure mine was much more barbaric than that. I just can't remember exactly what I said. But the whole point of it is, we have all this, we have negativity. So it's just this natural thing. We're humans. So sometimes we think of the worst case scenario. There's that whole scenario, that whole thing. Or we think the worst thing's going to happen. Or we envelop ourselves in the negative emotion because that's apparently a fun, safe place for us to be. And so we bury ourselves in it and drown ourselves.
Yeah.
And my thought process was, is that bad? Is there anything that's good about expressing your negative emotions? Is it good to get it out? Is it good to talk it out? And how can we do it in a productive way? And so that's where we turn it over to the professional, Miss Davies.
So I feel like the short answer to the question, are negative emotions helpful? The answer is yes, right? I think at the end of the day, all emotions are information, right? What happens is we tend to think that because we feel a feeling, we make up a story, and then we behave off of the story, not necessarily the emotion. We say, I did it because I was angry, or I did it because I was that. But when we really peel back the layers, what we find is that the emotion in and of itself doesn't do that, right? It's the stories we attach to it. So, and I think that because, I practice positive psychology, so people automatically have this assumption that it's just all optimism and positive emotion. And
all rainbows and unicorns for you. Isn't it?
I just talk about sunflowers and glitter, and really what the goal is for positive psychology is to be a yes and. Like, we do both of these things at the same time. We're afraid and we're brave. We're sad and we persevere. Like, we do these things together and in conjunction. And what I find is that what you're describing, like when we feel steeped in negativity, when we are worst case scenarioing everything.
Oh, I like that word.
You like it? I can't say it again, so I'm glad you liked it. When we are doing this, I feel like it's not necessarily the emotion, it's the stories it's the thing that we're actually afraid of. It's not fear itself. It's the thing we're actually afraid of in our mind. So an example might be like, I'm afraid to write my book. I want to write my book, but I'm just so afraid. I'm so afraid to write my book. And we think, okay, well, I didn't do it because I'm afraid. But in my experience, if you challenge yourself, and if I was working with you, the idea would be to peel back those layers. Is it really about the book? Is it probably more likely that you feel insecure or inadequate or not good enough or not smart enough or not brave enough, not equipped enough? Something like that is probably more true than just the fear itself. Because writing a book is a big freaking deal. Starting your own business is a big deal. Asking for a promotion is a big deal. These things, it's normal to feel fear. What we do is we attach that fear to a thought, to a belief, to an idea. And then that belief is what stops us. So I believe
the fear is okay and normal to have, right? Because it's a natural reaction. I don't want to go talk to my boss about a raise. I do, but I'm afraid of the outcome, or I'm afraid of the narrative, is what you're basically saying, that I've attached to what the outcome will be.
Yeah, sure. You might have the belief that you can't sell yourself, that, like you're waiting to come up for promotion and it's not coming. And so like, you think you have the desire to speak to your boss about it, but then you don't do it. Why don't you do it? Well, it's easy to say, well, I'm just afraid, but go a bit deeper. Is it just the fear, or is it more like, you don't believe you can overcome the objections? You don't know, you don't want to sell yourself. You don't want to have to justify your position, right? Like whenever we get put in those positions, I feel like it's natural to have like self-doubt, to have those fears, to have those concerns, but it requires us to go deeper. So
why do you think that we create those narratives? Because I'm guilty of it. I think we all are, right? So we get in there and we have created every scenario down to the last minute, the argument, how I'm going to look, where my head's going to go. We've thought it all out. And so of course, you're in a negative spot before you even take your first step.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know that the why we create the narratives is the most important thing. I think it really comes down to, if I'm afraid that I can't sell myself, I at least have something I can work on.
Right.
Makes sense. If I don't do that, if I don't get to that level of understanding about myself and why I have this fear, like the fear is a signal. It's a lighthouse in the dark that says, hey, you're about to do something brave or hard or challenging or something that might put you at risk. You might go in there and ask for a raise, and then it might turn into a different conversation. You might think that if they say no, then you're going to have to quit. And then you're afraid you're going to be broke and homeless and your family's going to be destitute, right? Like, you might have this big, big story in your head about what would happen if you were to do this thing.
Right.
Right.
It's also a crutch, isn't it? Because basically, I feel like some people, I've done it. You use it, you go, well, I'm not even going to try because it's not going to happen. And here's why. And I'm going to justify it. It almost feels better to not do it because then I haven't really risked anything.
Yeah. Well, I think it really comes down to learning to utilize your negative emotions. We are proponents of avoidance. Yes, like society at large, the world in general, we're like, let's just avoid confrontation and discomfort as much as possible. Like, keep it over there. I'm going to be over here, keeping the peace, trying to just keep everything status quo. And I think that when fear and anger come up, what they do is they threaten that status quo. They threaten the comfort that we have tried to maintain. But I think that if you can utilize your fear, if you can utilize your anger, it's telling you something. It's telling you, hey, you need to work on self-confidence. You've been showing up to work. You like, it's not just about attendance. It's about like, you've been showing up as the person you want to be. You've done things that you can quantify. You've made them this much money. You've finished this many deliverables. You have written this many words. You have made this many trinkets, right? Like, you have a way to quantify your skills. And now that if you listen to your fear says, hey, this is a big deal. You're about to ask for something that's important. How do you do that? That's an important thing. The fear itself is not the bad thing. The narrative that you create about what you think is the thing, right?
Yes.
But we can work on that. Can you control fear? Don't be afraid of asking for a raise. Is that helpful? You know what I mean? Just don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid. But here's the thing. I think people don't know how to express negative emotions, which is also one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this.
Yeah.
I feel like if you take a word like anger, people go one way or another. You either aren't allowed to ever be angry about anything. You can feel it, but you can't express it. So if you can't express it, I don't know how that time bomb is going to go off.
Mm-hmm.
But on the flip side, people don't know how to express it.
Yeah.
They're so diarrhea of the mouth that it becomes a screaming fit or a crying fit so I think people want to be able to express how they feel, even if it's anger, even if it's complete sadness, but they don't know necessarily how to do it.
Yeah. And again, I think that even for anger, if we utilize anger and if we get honest with ourselves about what we're angry about, when we talk about it, it can be more effective when we're talking about what we're actually angry about. You know, I always use like arguing about the trash example. Like, you know, you ask your partner to take out the trash, they say they will, and then they don't. And then you end up in a fight about the trash. Well, you know what days the trash goes out. You know it's Tuesdays. You know that. You know, like it just becomes a fight about the trash. No, I didn't know that. Blah 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 blah. And now you're fighting about something that's absolutely useless, right? But if you were to be honest and responsible and listen to your anger and listen, when you listen, it's not telling you to blame. If I was honest in that situation, I would say, when I ask you to do something and you say you will and then you don't, I lose trust in you.
Yes.
If you're honest and responsible, you would say, when you said you would take out the trash and you didn't, it's like the 5th time. It feels like you don't think that my time is as valuable as your time.
Correct.
Now we're having a different conversation.
Yeah.
Now I'm bringing the realness to you. I'm not telling you what you know and what you should do and that if you loved me, you would. I am saying that when you behave this way, I feel this way. That's not what either of us want, right? When
Correct.
we're loving and healthy relationship, that should not be the desired outcome. How can we navigate this? I find a lot of the times the passive aggressive, the slamming the cabinets and the doors and like the yelling and it's all protection.
Yeah.
But it is also because we're not taught to peel back the layers. We're not taught that it's okay to say, I'm afraid that this means that you don't love me. I'm afraid this conversation is going towards you think that it's my fault that you behave that way, right? Because saying those things are really hard and vulnerable. And when we're angry, we don't want to be vulnerable. We want to puff up and be defensive and say, no, no.
Yeah,
no.
we do.
But at the end of the day, when in business, for instance, or if you're working with a team, feelings are going to get hurt. People are going to disappoint people. We're human beings. This is going to happen. We have to learn how to actually express these things effectively. And if you walk into a situation with self-awareness and can say, I feel angry because of this, right? Like this thing happened and then I felt this way. And the story I'm making up is that you don't value my time.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't put the ink in the printer. You didn't respond to that email. You know,
Oh my God, let's talk about that really fast. I have personal things that I want to throw at you, very generic, hopefully. And if you think it's about you, it probably is. So if you're watching, I'm sorry. I always love to say that. So I think what happens is we do something, right? Or something happens and then our negative emotions rear their heads, whether it's ugly or not. Let's just say they come up. You didn't respond to my email. Mm-hmm. I think the decision you made is so bad and I don't know how to express to you how disappointed I am. Mm-hmm. I think that we're afraid of we have an expectation of what their reaction is going to be. And it prohibits us from actually saying the things that we want to say. Mm. And then it gives us another out. And I'm guilty of it. I have 2 instances. I have someone who does not like to respond to emails. My initial gut reaction is to find them and choke them and ask them why. And I'm not even a violent person. And then the other one is I know that I need to share some things that are not necessarily going to make the other person happy. Mm-hmm. And so I'm anticipating there's going to be some negative outcome from it, and I'm avoiding it. Mm.
So I guess let's start at the beginning, right? So for the person who doesn't like to respond to emails, like there's natural consequence to all the things, right? So if I don't want to respond to emails, then I'm going to miss information and there are going to be natural consequences.
Yes.
Right? Now, if this is coming down to you're not able to move until this person responds, like there's got to be some more context in order to give you like a super effective answer. But from 35,000 feet, I feel like if we really wanted to be pointed, being able to say, hey, I emailed you about this, I emailed you about that, have evidence to share and say, is there a better way to communicate with you? Would you?
Yes. Okay. So that's what I did. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So my thought process was, okay, maybe my perception is I'm putting on them the best way that I know how to communicate and express myself. Maybe that's not the best way for them to receive it or for them to communicate it back.
Sure.
So that's what I said was, is this just not your preferred way of communicating? Now, I haven't gotten a response yet, so I don't have an answer for you. But what a great answer, because that's what I did, not knowing. I don't know. And then, but remember, you have, like you said, you have to take this step back and you have to kind of go, am I just projecting all of this on somebody else and making them fit my little square box on how they should respond? Or am I allowing them to tell me, Ted, I can't do it this way. I want to do it this way.
And what I like about this particular response and saying, hey, is there a better way to communicate with you? Right? Like I noticed you're not responsive. I sent this email and I sent this email and I didn't get a response back. The consequence of you not responding was this. I wasn't able to meet this deadline. Good. I wasn't able to respond to this client. I want to be able to be effective for both of us. Tell me the best way to communicate with you. Good. Right? Yes. Now, what I love about this is that I don't go in my head and make up a story that Joe just doesn't care. Right.
Well, that's the story I did. I'm going to be honest.
It's there.
In my head,
that's not
I'm like, you don't love me. You don't like me. Yes, why?
Of course.
That's also why I want to strangle you.
Of course. But you didn't.
And I know better from our conversations. I get it. I know better. But still, as a human being, my initial response was, they just don't like me. They don't respect me. Oh, God, what's wrong? Yeah. Stupid scenario creation in my brain.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think it's stupid. I think it's like when you pay attention to the stories, it tells you where your work is, right? And you and I both know we got the same thing. Like we want to be loved. You can't clap loud enough or long enough. Like if you feel,
you can't.
And if we feel like you're not loving on us, you know what I mean? We're like, I'm a sensitive Sally. I'm going to need some reassurance here. Validate my feelings. Hold me, you know, like that's where we go. But
seems like such a simple thing.
What I love about what you're saying is like, you could have the story, step back and recognize, like, let the anger talk to you. What is this anger actually about? Yes, this person isn't responding. That's an objective fact. The story that they don't like me or respect me is what I'm making up as a result of that behavior.
True.
Let me go in and see if there's an alternative. Let me see if there's anything other than that story that could possibly be true and then go from that, right? So when we step back, we say, oh, well, maybe this just isn't how they prefer to communicate. Let me ask. Right. And now we've taken a step out of the story. And I imagine that when you did that step, the anger kind of subsides, right? That insecurity out subsides because we don't feed it. You step back and you look at it and you get curious about it. You're neither feeding it or starving it. You're saying, how can I utilize this to be better? What is it actually kicking up within myself that I could do differently?
Spot on. Absolutely. And so the second one is just, I think a lot of us feel this way. We want to communicate with people. We've got something that we perceive to be negative, something that we feel like we need to share, whether we need to or don't. I'm just using that terminology. And yet we're afraid to share our feelings because we're afraid of the response.
Yeah. Well, and okay, again, without any context, this
35,000 feet.
If I go out 35,000 feet and we're not talking about mitigating factors, you're not talking to an abusive person or a toxic person. You're talking to just your friend, your partner,
somebody you love. Yeah.
Somebody that you know, right?
Yes.
Or even if it's like an employee-employer like feedback scenario even.
Right.
I think that the best way to lead with these conversations, first and foremost, is listen to what's coming up for you. Are you making up stories? One of the things that I think is most profound is when we actually step back and ask for evidence if the story is true. So if I start a conversation and I say, listen, so the story I'm making up is that you didn't take out the trash because you don't value my time.
Right.
Talking about the trash doesn't necessarily qualify as like a difficult conversation, but when we're talking like the 5th time and I've got a bunch of feelings about it, it makes it a difficult conversation.
It does.
Now I have to be vulnerable, and now I have to combat like that feeling and your defensiveness and the way you're going to, maybe you want to fight about the trash because you're not doing your work, but I am doing my work, right?
Right.
It doesn't change how I come at you. I know that what I'm really about has nothing to do with the actual trash or the schedule or when the trash goes out. We're both adults. We both know when the trash goes out. The problem here is that I asked you to do something and you didn't do it. And for me, that is something that's really hard. If you tell me you're going to be here at 6 and you show up at 6:30, even if you call and give me a heads up, I still don't like it. Like
I don't like it at all.
Like, it's not that I never do that to other people, but like it's rare. I try to do what I say I'm going to do. And when people don't do that, that is something that I carry. It's hard for me to let that go. So I frequently have to say the story I make up when you say you're going to do something and you don't do it is that you don't value my time. You don't respect my schedule, right? Like I have a kid, I have a business. Like if I'm giving you time, my time is my money. It has value. And if you don't respect it, like that is a problem for me. The people who are closest to me, I've had this conversation. They know, right? When I go out into the world and it happens, it is difficult, but it's also still really valuable to get the evidence. And the other person can say, you know what? I totally see how you would feel that way, but I promise you, it was not that. Like I was running late. My battery died on my phone. Like it was a slew of unfortunate events, but I totally respect your time and I want to be here. I am sorry. And now I have evidence. I have an actual apology. I have something that kind of reconciles the feelings that I have. If we're never willing to challenge the story, then we get locked into it.
Yeah, I think the narrative. Sorry, you broke up a little. Say it again.
I was saying that it leads us to feed the fear and feed the anger.
We do feed it, right? I feel like and by we, I'm including myself, obviously, feed into it. I mean, there are some times where I do just like everybody jokes about in those memes and insomnia. I have run through an entire year's worth of arguments, discussions, and it's not the shower. Mine usually happens at night at 1 o'clock in the morning. But we do that, and then I'm exhausted at the end of it, and I realize I've accomplished absolutely nothing, but I still torture myself with it. So I guess what I feel like you're saying, and I'm hearing you, is that I have to really work on the narrative that I'm creating. I have to take the responsibility that I'm the one creating it. It's not somebody told me to feel this way or because my mom said it 40 years ago. This is something I'm creating in my head and I'm making it this way. Now, how do I unmake it that way?
Well, I think learning to challenge yourself and ask if it's true. Like, is it true? Is it true that you don't love me? Is that why you don't do this? Right? Like, that's the story. And here's the thing. You know it's a story when you don't want to ask if it's true because you know how absolutely outlandish it is.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like, if I had to ask you if you didn't do X because you don't love me, because that's the story I make up in my head. If I had to actually ask for evidence of that every single time I thought it, like, I don't want to do that, right? I know that that's my story. And I know, like, I believe that sometimes we can be so in the shit that we cannot see clearly. Sometimes that happens. And sometimes the story, because we're dealing with somebody that we have history with, we're dealing with somebody who has hurt us before, we're dealing with somebody who does this thing, yeah?
Yes.
We might be so in the shit that we can't see clearly. And it might feel like no matter what they say, that story that you have is true. Yeah. Even if the story is true, if you really peel back the layers and you listen to your anger, what you're going to end up hearing is something that's probably more honest and more responsible. Like, this isn't the work situation you should be in.
Right.
Time to pursue another job. It's time to update your resume.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter how much they say. It doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter if they're right. It doesn't matter if their criticism of you and the way that they deliver it is crap, but their criticism is true, right? Like, it just doesn't even matter. If you listen, and you don't listen to blame, and you don't listen to be right, you listen to be curious and to understand what this negative emotion is trying to tell you, you're going to hear in your own voice, not theirs, right? So it won't be blaming and defensive. It will be really clear. This isn't what I want. In my mind, in relationships, this is not how they're supposed to be. This relationship may not be for me. This job may not be for me. This boss and I, we may have, what is it? What is the divorce?
Irreconcilable differences.
Yeah. You get what I mean?
I think that's so powerful, because I think people want to, and we'll wrap it up. I know I'm running behind, but I feel like people want to figure out a way to justify it and to put it into a cute little package that makes sense to everybody in the parameters that they set. And I think that allowing yourself to really have those honest conversations and get down to the nitty gritty of why, what's really going on, is so powerful, because you're right. It isn't necessarily about the person or the treatment, for example. It could be about, this isn't the right place for you. This isn't the right relationship for you. This is deeper than just this surface thing that's going on. That seems.
And 9 out of 10 times, you already knew it. You
did.
This experience is just a different manifestation of something you've already thought and felt.
So true.
You know, if it's with a friend that's been like late all the time and canceling on you, and you're all sensitive and you're in your feels about it, it's because you've already had the thought. You've already had this awareness. You've already not liked the way that they've treated you or reacted, or they've done something, right? And you already have this truth. The challenge here is learning that we're responsible for our truth. Yeah. And it's easy to use your anger to justify, defend, and be right. 100%. And I wouldn't say 9 times out of 10, there are times where you can totally be right. My question is, would you rather be right or be happy?
Agreed.
Because when I act out on my anger, when I act outside of my values, I feel like shit. It doesn't matter how right I am. Right. When I win that argument and I go home, I still am rehearsing the conversation.
Of course, I know.
You get what I mean? You don't actually win. Even when you win, if you had to do it outside of your values, and you had to if you're the one who's in the door and you raised your voice and you know you acted out of line, you're still going to feel like crap. So like, you don't actually win even when you win. Yeah. So love that. So when we take responsibility and we say, I'm going to listen to my anger, I'm going to listen to it. It's going to teach me something. I'm going to listen to my fear. It doesn't mean that you do or don't do what the anger tells you. My anger might be saying, yeah, like slam the door, throw the thing, raise your voice, right? That might be the thing. Or my fear might say, don't do this. This is too big, right? I'm not saying listen to it and just do the first thing that comes up. I'm saying challenge it. Do you have evidence that the story that you're making up is true? Is the story that you're making up really about the book you want to write, the promotion you want to get, or the friend that you want to confront? Or is the story about something else? More about like you being insecure, afraid, having self-doubt? Like, is it really, which one is it? Parse it out.
I can't blame it on someone else.
What? I know.
All right, tell them how they reach you. What's the best way to reach you? That was very powerful. I loved it. Thank you for your insights. So if people want to learn more about you, how do they reach out?
So you can go to stellarlifecoaching.com. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram, Kendra Davies on Facebook, Stellar Life Coaching on Facebook. On Instagram, you can find me at Stellar Coach. You can feel free to message me. My number is on the website. I'm here for you.
Amazing. All right. The one and only Kendra Davies. That was very, very insightful. Thank you. Amazing.
Thank you. Thanks,
all
everybody.
Right. Great seeing you. Love you to pieces. We'll be back next time, guys. If you have a topic you'd like us to talk about, believe me, we have a slew of them, but we'd love your insight if you'd like.
Tell us.
Reach out to us. Why not?
Ask me anything. I'm a wealth of resources and knowledge.
She is a wealth of resources. All right, guys. We'll see you soon. Take care, everybody. Have a good night.